target for players who have tackled a majority of the base game, which, quote, means we have kind of really pushed the envelope in terms of what we think can be withstood by the players. Of course, some bosses are a necessary part of the story development and arc, but some are not. The ones that aren't are especially difficult.
Hey, Clyde. How
I
you doing there,
think
hun?
will pose a very good challenge and obstacle for players. He warned us days beforehand that Shadow of the Erdtree would be hard, even for veteran FromSoft Soulsborne players.
Damn.
And that is precisely what was delivered. In fact,
100%.
that was delivered so well that Elden Ring Shadow of the Erdtree right now on Steam, if you look at the review score, it's sitting at a mixed score of 61%. And not because the DLC is bad, but mainly because people are finding the difficulty of this DLC, particularly where bosses and enemies are concerned, to be a bit too ridiculous.
I think that there's also a huge component of people
I'm so glad I haven't killed myself.
that are unhappy about, for example, there's a lot of people that don't like the Scout Tree upgrade system. They don't like the idea that they have to run around and randomly kill things and explore and like just do random stuff in order to like progress their character. Like that's one criticism, but the bigger criticism than that is actually performance, right? A lot of people are criticizing the game based off of performance.
Interesting.
They were like, well,
I'm playing on max difficulty by choice. It's not that bad. The DLC is fun, or maybe Souls-like games made
they're capping.
Made me a masochist. Okay.
I'm just saying, like, that's what
maybe
people are saying in the
reviews.
I read the reviews. That's what people are saying.
If you look at the reviews right now,
you can check it right now for yourself.
Significant portion of them are positive, but looking at the negative ones, you can see that a lot of them talk about the
this is again the leveling system. A lot of people don't like the leveling system, and this is again another review that's performance. That's literally exactly what I said.
Leveling and scaling and the bosses you fight and the kinds of attacks
I
that
haven't seen it.
they chain and perform and how exceedingly
I haven't played
frustrating
Elden
it
Ring
is.
in almost 2 years since platinum it. I now decided to get back to the game again. I honestly don't understand why people are
a lot of people are saying, man, what the hell, incredibly tough. Right here we have an article from news outlet Forbes that kind of compiles some of the
I'm like I haven't played the DLC, right? I haven't played the Elden Ring DLC, right? Or just Elden Ring in general, but like there's so many ways to like kill things super fast, you know.
We have seen from reviews saying things like the gameplay makes the game hard to recommend, spastic bosses with jerky roll catch movements, and a plethora of...
I do think that things like roll catching and delay attacks, in my opinion, it changes the way that it feels fighting the boss. It makes it feel like you're not fighting against the boss, you're fighting against the developer, because it's designed in a way to explicitly punish certain types of player behavior. And it can be frustrating to do that.
Physically
It's
nonsensical.
the same thing as like input reading is... Do I like input reading? No, actually I don't. I think that input reading is stupid.
People did not beat the base game.
And I think that input reading would be better if it wasn't as instantaneous. Because like you can look at the logic of input reading is that the NPC has its own AI and the AI will determine what your character is doing, right? So logically, it would make sense that if you were healing, the Crucible Knight would immediately go try to attack you.
Yeah.
But I think the problem is that it's so immediate that it feels artificial. Like in the first frame of you taking a drink, it's immediately beginning the animation. So that's I think that input reading is not a bad thing, but I think that when it's so extreme and so immediate, it becomes a bad thing because it starts to feel artificial.
Moves make the bosses in this DLC hard to put up with. As someone who beat all the FromSoft games with gimped level 1 characters for fun, the base game included, I'll be calling quits on this one. Miyazaki did say we're pushing the envelope, and I guess he really did. While the world design and colors are really beautiful and a lot of enemy designs too, there's a big problem with balancing right now. Even with 60 vigor, you get
game. What are they expecting?
Nearly
a difficulty
every enemy
slider?
that's not pure fodder.
I think that's true too. There are a lot of like random mobs that do an insane amount of damage. Like it's crazy how much damage they do. And if you compare like the DLC for like Dark Souls 1, Dark Souls 3, Bloodborne, or Dark Souls 2 even, Like, the damage scaling has never been this extreme.
Really wanted to like this DLC, but those enemies and boss fights are the worst parts of the whole game. I'm genuinely surprised whoever play tested this approved the Golden Hippo boss fight.
The Golden Hippo boss fight is terrible. It's probably, I would say, I think it's the worst fight that I've done in the DLC.
Is that true?
And
is that true?
And the reason why, and this is the problem, right?
Is that true, chat? Do you guys agree with that statement? Because I wanted to hear Asmongold's point on this issue when it came to the Elden Ring thing. What do you guys think about the hippo fight? The hippo is some BS, that hitbox. Okay, so it is kind of BS. So the hippo fight is BS. We can all agree that it's a BS fight then. Granted, I haven't played it, but since you guys are confirming it that it's a pretty BS fight, you know. If you guys are confirming it, then it's true. If Asmon's talking about the dude riding a hippo or a boar, yeah. Let me see. Let me go back.
Boss fight.
The Golden Hippo boss fight is terrible.
The Golden Hippo boss fight. Do you guys know what that is by any chance? The Golden Hippo boss fight? I only saw images. Yeah, but I'm talking to the people who have played who is playing and who has finished it. So, if they finished it, or who is still currently playing it, I should say. Because I know I have two chatters. I know I have a couple chatters in here that has played the Elden Ring DLC at least. Yeah, the golden hippo. I haven't bought the DLC, so I don't know. You haven't bought the DLC? Damn, I thought you would have bought the DLC. I thought you would have been playing it by now. Oh my god. Damn, that's kind of a bit shocking, to be honest. I'm not gonna lie, that's a bit shocking. I did not expect that, to be honest. Actually, was not expecting that. I actually was not expecting that one, actually. That caught me off guard, actually. Last weekend. Too busy with other games. You know what? That's understandable. I can understand that. I can understand that. That's understandable. That's understandable.
It's probably, I would say, I think it's the worst fight that I've done in DLC. And the reason why, and this is the problem, right, is that the reason why it's bad has nothing to do with the difficulty. It's bad because of the way that the character moves. Like, basically, the main reasons, there's two reasons why the fight is bad. Number one, the boss is too big. Number two, the room is too small, and you get put up against a wall constantly, and you're fighting against the camera.
Let me see. Let me take a look at this real quick. The Golden Hippo. Oh, is this the one right here, chat? Is this it right here? Is it really like a super small room or something like that? Like, how small is this room? Not that small. It's not that small, to be honest. I was expecting something even smaller, to be honest. Huh. Yeah, I was expecting the root to be a little bit more smaller. It doesn't look that, it really doesn't look that small, to be frank. You have plenty of space. What is he talking about? I was expecting like something small or something, you know? It doesn't look that difficult, to be honest. Like, this guy managed to do it or so with some of the stuff he did. Yeah. Okay.
The mechanics for the boss are like, yeah, the delay attacks are really annoying, but it's basically fine. It's the
I disagree with Asmon on the size. There were lizard dragon sized creatures in the same size in the base game. Okay, I see.
Camera. The camera's a real boss. Yeah, that's terror. It feels awful.
I didn't see the issue with the camera. I thought the camera was fine, at least from what I saw. At least from what I saw for like the 1 minute fight. You know, it only took that guy 1 minute to kill the thing.
It's not the character, not the camera, and you beat it, so... Well, what's the logic there? So if I can beat a game, that makes the game good? If I can beat Atari if I can beat ET on Atari, does that mean ET on Atari is good? Think about what you're saying.
Sorry, I'm gonna have to disagree with him, to be honest. Like, I just saw a video or so. Like, it's like the camera didn't feel like it was that insanely close. Like, it didn't feel like it was like a Liza P kind of situation, you know? And the monster size wasn't really that big. The only thing that was super big or so was this like little porcupine. It was this little porcupine thing. So
I think people are so desperate to protect their gaming achievements that they're unwilling to look at anything logically. It's not an achievement that you beat a boss in a video game. It was programmed for you to beat it. Think about it a little bit more, man. Weirdly, I had no issue with the hippo. I just blew right through it. Got leathered by... Yeah, I mean, like, obviously people are going to have trouble with different bosses based off of different builds. But I think that, like, the points of failure can be, like, more and less annoying.
Was able to beat it, but the bosses were so overtuned and aggressive that even being almost maxed out with the scattertree fragments didn't make it any easier. So look, I think people are allowed to have their opinions about this DLC. I think if you're frustrated by certain boss designs and the way they chain their attacks and whatever, that's your opinion to have. That's just not been my experience. If anything, I've been waiting for FromSoft to challenge me all over again. At this point, I've played so many FromSoft games and I've gotten...
I think that it's not really about, like, being challenged. I think that there's, like, a difference and there's, like, a spectrum of being challenged where it's, like, whenever I find that something is, like, so challenging that it's punishing, and it's, like, not fun to do. Like, have you guys ever done a fight or, like... I think I've had this experience a lot with WoW, where, like, whenever I finally kill a raid boss on, like, Mythic, and this is the way I would feel, this is why I stopped raiding, is that I wouldn't feel, like, that exhilaration and happiness. I would just feel relief that it was over.
The one boss, the only boss that has ever made me do that was the final boss of Liza P. The final boss of Liza P was the most annoyingest fucking boss I've ever had to fight with, because the only reason why is because I had to literally change the way how I played for that specific boss fight. Like, throughout the entire game, I played it the way how I wanted to play, but then the final boss, I had to completely fucking do everything like a 180 or so in order for me to, like, just the one boss out of the entire game. It was just that one fucking boss, you know, the whatever the fuck, I forgot what it was called. That specific final boss, I had to completely change my playstyle, which made it so fucking annoying. And I was just like, oh my god, it's fucking finally over. Like, I honestly was just like so fucking like tired of it, you know? Like, I finished it, I beat it, but I did not feel very satisfied beating it personally, because I thought it was completely BS. Like, at least, like, if you're gonna put a difficult boss, at least let me play the way how I've played it throughout the entire game, you know? So, yeah, so that's the only thing. That's literally the only boss that has ever made me ever fucking, like, almost made me rage quit, like, no joke, and never come back playing the game ever again. So that boss almost made me rage quit, but I did manage to beat it. But it did not feel very satisfying. I was just like, fuck, it's fucking over. Shit, I don't want to play this shit anymore. So, yeah. And that was pretty much it. That's literally the only boss ever in, like, throughout my time playing video games. That's literally the only boss that has made me, like, mentally exhausted. And I got sick the next day, too, as well, because of that specific boss. I actually got sick and I couldn't stream anymore for a while.
And I think that whenever, like, boss fights in games get so hard, it goes into that category of just relief. Like, thank God this is over.
So good at them that it's gotten rare for me to.
Yeah, but that's kind of BS though. You play the game throughout the entire way, but then the final boss, like, you can't play the way how you want to play. Like, it's just kind of like, come on, dude. It's like basically the same thing. If you do that in a Dark Souls game, you can build like a heavy sword build, right? But then at the end of the game, you have to do a light sword build. You can't use a heavy sword build. Like, how pissed off would you be if you played the entire game the way how you wanted to play in a Dark Souls game, but then at the final boss, you have to change your fucking play style. Like, you can't play the way how you wanted to. So it's just kind of like, it just infuriates you after a while.
Have a boss fight where I
at least give me some windows for me to actually do my normal way of gameplay, you know? So
literally, like, I am shaking as I deplete the boss's final bit.
Yeah, but what happens if the final boss itself punishes you for playing that same playstyle consistently? Like the entire game, right? Let's say about like 98% of the game, right? You play the way how you wanted, you build the way how you wanted and everything. But the 2% of that one final boss, right? You're not allowed to play that playstyle because it's just gonna fucking smack you across the face consistently because, you know, you decided to play that playstyle. You know, that's basically what happened to me, and it was just so fucking annoying. It was not satisfying to beat the boss. I didn't like it. I hated it. You know, I've beaten other difficult bosses, you know, the way how I played it, and I never had an issue with it. So it's just Lies of P was just the one specific one that just kind of like infuriated me so much.
Bits of health left, and when I do beat the boss, I literally jump out of my seat, trembling, screaming in joy. You know, unconsciously, just my body and my mind are so hyped about the victory that I've just achieved that I feel this overwhelming sense of joy and adrenaline that followed the hatred that I felt for the boss and the game. Like, that to me is the quintessential FromSoft experience. And
I think that is the experience for sure. But whenever something becomes so challenging that you go past that point, like, I think that's the issue. The guy gets it. Yeah. I mean, like, to me, so whenever a fight gets like really, really hard, I feel like the way that I can play the game becomes more limited.
Yeah.
So basically, like, the harder something is, the less options you have to solve a problem, right? So because you can't use those options because they're not optimal.
Yep.
And I think that whenever something becomes so hard that I feel like I have to play in one way, it makes it less enjoyable for me.
Exactly.
Because I feel like I am executing effectively like a 3-minute cheat code.
Just like that final boss from Lies of P.
And I've been getting that with this DLC, and yeah, there are moments where I'm like, what the fuck? But I miss that feeling. To give an example,
I beat the Lies of P final boss with parrying and pure dodge. Will say pure dodging is not that good unless you wait a spot to gear that improved dodging for the red moves. I just parried. That's it. That's all I fucking did. I basically parried almost like what 90-80% of his attacks. But that was like hours and hours of fucking like keep constantly just fucking like learning his shit, you know. That's it. Because, you know, I had to change my playstyle. I was forced to change my playstyle. And it was kind of BS that I had to change my playstyle, you know? I was just like, okay, all right, I guess I'm just gonna have to fucking change it. And then it just wasn't, once I beat it, it just wasn't satisfying. I just didn't like it personally, so.
Any real criticism that I have for the bosses outside of like being big and like bad camera angles, I don't even think it's the attack patterns. I just don't like how aggressive they are because it makes learning to fight really unfun. Because like you're constantly trying to run away and like heal, but the mob is just like pursuing you and attacking you constantly. Yeah, you have no time to heal. I don't like that at all. It's just very stressful for me, and it makes learning to fight not enjoyable. Some have no chill. Yeah, they're hyper relentless. Like, yeah, they never stop attacking. And if you go back and you look at the old bosses in the game, none of them were like that, really. And like,
is that true? Is that true, chat? Is the base game bosses not over aggressive compared to the DLC? Can you guys confirm this by any chance for those who have played the base of Elden Ring? Because I've never played it, so I can't put my own opinion on this one. So for me, I had multiple playstyles. In my opinion, sometimes it's not about how you beat a boss. It's beating the boss no matter what and how it takes it. This is how it was in the old Souls games. Some bosses is weak in certain builds and playstyles, so you have to improvise, adapt, overcome. Yeah, but if I put all my fucking upgrades into a single weapon, right, to upgrade it, and then I get punished for it, it's just kind of like, well, I just wasted all my resources on it. So yes and no, it depends. Okay. How much of a percentage or so that the bosses are super aggressive in the base game, and like how much a percentage it's not aggressive in the base game? Depending on your build, the bosses can be really easy to beat, or depending on your level. Okay, but like the question is, like when you go into the boss fight, are they super aggressive on you though? Do they constantly keep bashing on you, coming and attack you consistently? There are some that will not let you heal unless you find the right time between the moves. Okay. So what's an estimate percentage out of 100%, right? Out of all the bosses that you guys fought, right? What's a rough estimate percentage or so that you guys can say that like, oh, about like, you know, 40% of the bosses are aggressive and then the rest are not? Like what's the percentage that you guys would give, like a rough estimate out of 100? Out of all the bosses that you guys fought in the game, I would say 50 to 60 of the bosses. Okay. 50 to 60 that are aggro. Okay. That's still a pretty decently high number.
Not having that minute to just like stop and be like, okay, this is what's going on. It's
there
very
goes optional
stressful.
bosses around the map.
And
okay.
I don't like that at all.
Well, I think that's the only one example I can think of where is the most aggressive, but a rough estimate I say is 50.
I can't speak for everyone.
There's only one that is
unforgiving.
One.
I'm saying that like the progression for that doesn't feel good to me. No chance to catch your breath. Yeah, exactly. Play games to be stressful. Yeah, like I don't like it, and I think this is also like just for me personally. Like I don't really like playing games that are stressful. And I think that like playing baseline Elden Ring wasn't really stressful for me because it didn't take that long to figure things out, and I could kind of learn at my own pace. Whereas like a lot of the DLC bosses are so aggressive and so fast and so aggro that you just have to play perfectly the entire time, and one mistake punishes you into like 5 other mistakes, and before you know it, you're dead. They're relentless. Yeah, exactly. It's annoying. Like it's extremely stressful. And this comes from somebody who's played the game. Like I've beaten every.
It feels like Fatalis. You can't just heal in front of him, and if you play the old Monster Hunter games, you can't even move when healing. Yeah, the old ones. Yeah, in the older games, you can't move while healing. I do remember that. So.
Everything else just designed poorly. Combos are chained. You never get to heal, and you never know when you're allowed to attack. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, but that's when you like. That's when you need like at least when you like when you first come into a fight, right? You gotta learn. You have to learn the boss itself before you know, learn its attack patterns. When to dodge, when to block. When to do all that stuff. Like that's like at least like the first couple of tries, right? That's basically how it is. I just bought Aska. You bought Aska? Aska?
So what makes a game stressful? I think
I'm gonna
that
play
whenever
later.
you can't,
All right, you tell me. You tell me
wait,
how
hold
you
on.
feel about it.
Whenever you can't like stop for a second and get heals, I think that's very annoying. I find it to be annoying, and I don't enjoy that type of gameplay. Remember the birds? Yeah, exactly.
Freaking Renala. I was having a really tough time with this boss battle for some reason. You know, this is essentially a knight mage kind of combo like boss battle. And
Renala,
I disagree with Asmon in my opinion. All Elden Ring and FromSoft game bosses require some learning of the boss's moves to win and to heal. Yeah, because it's the same thing. It's the same thing when I was doing the Kingdom Hearts fight or so, right? The data battles, right? There are moments of times that you have to learn when to heal, when to block, or when to dodge. You know, it is what it is. Or just spam the dodge button half the entire time. So let's enter a boss arena being very overpowered. You need to memorize the attack patterns of the boss. Yeah, like you just need to learn the boss itself.
Did that hardly at all. For example, like I thought that like that boss didn't do it at all. I thought that boss was fine. That boss was a great boss.
I tend to be pretty good at those particular fights where it's just an enemy swinging swords around, but just there's something about her attack patterns, the range of her attacks, and the way she weaves around the field that was just so...
Well, the problem also is that... So, I haven't been able to, like, really fully figure this out, but I think that... So, do you know that there's, like, a flame attack combo that Mesmer does, where it's, like, 2 impales, and then there's, like, a fire attack, and then there's, like, a side swipe. I think that if you attack him after the side swipe, he can input read you, which will cause him to do a second attack, which will be a fire spear impale. In my opinion, I don't know if that's an input read or not, but it certainly feels like it. Yeah, Mesmer's amazing fight. Yeah, you attack after the impale. Right, but like that's not always, because other times he'll do the side swipe and then he'll stop attacking. I actually thought Renal was the worst boss in DLC personally. Yeah, I like this boss the most. I thought this was the best boss.
Difficult to wrap my head around, and with my present build and level of scatter tree blessings, I was just being one-shot by some of her attacks, which just made it very difficult to advance. And so I decided to adjust my playstyle. I decided to kill her by parrying her from beginning to end. Learn her attack so well that I could...
I see. In my opinion, Elden Ring is the easiest FromSoft game because there's so many OP builds that you can get them real fast. That's what I've been hearing. I've been hearing that like Elden Ring is like one of the easiest ones because there's just so many overpowered builds, you know.
Could parry her attacks before she could start swinging around, and that is precisely what I did, motherfuckers.
Oh yeah, S-Fan's doing that. Pretty good.
I was so satisfied and so overjoyed by the fact that I managed to pull this off.
Hope the devs don't nerf the DLC bosses. That's the idea for tough DLC bosses compared to the base bosses. I hope they don't.
I think that what he's saying is actually really true. And I think that like, so his enthusiasm about it is why I think From Software games are so good. And the reason why I think he feels so good about it is because he decided to do that. Like, he decided to change his playstyle and do something different that gave him an advantage and let him solve a problem. And I think that's why, for example, people like the games. Because you can effectively turn on an easy mode in the game, but it feels like you've earned that easy mode because you have, like, almost, like, discovered it, if that makes sense.
So good at pairing in Sekiro, but pairing in sort of Dark Souls and Elden Ring, it's not as effective. But I decided, let's go back to Sekiro days and try pairing out. And when I did accomplish that, it took, you know, a couple hours of really learning, well, like 2 hours of learning her attacks before I got really good at it. But once I got good at it, I felt like a freaking god. And there comes a point where you fought a boss so many times. And
somebody says he refused to adapt, which many players are not willing to do. The reason why a lot of players aren't willing to adapt is because of the way the game is designed. So there are two things that kind of lock you into, like, you only have a certain amount of respecs, and respecs have like a cost to them. And also you can only fully upgrade one weapon at a time. Larval tiers, exactly. So because you are not able to infinitely respec, and you're not able to fully upgrade a weapon, you can upgrade it to a +9, or you can upgrade it to a +24, but you can't do a +25 or a +10 for obviously regular weapons and somber weapons as well. So I think the reason why players are less willing to change their build in a game like Elden Ring is because they're punished for doing so, and doing so is an opportunity cost. So, and I think that you can contrast this, for example, with Armored Core 6, where I think that changing build was just the norm at that point. So, like, for example, whenever I changed my build in Armored Core, everything became easy. So I think that's the difference. And basically, if you have a system that punishes you for adapting, then you should expect people not to adapt. It's pretty
Interesting. It's true that Elden Ring is the easiest, especially because one of the builds you can use to surf through the game is the mage/magic build. You will destroy everything with little to no effort. Plus, there are 2 summons you can use that are very overpowered. Okay.
simple, right? I mean, because people don't want to get punished.
You've seen their attacks so many times where everything just kind of clicks. There comes that moment where you recognize that you are the one, and you start the freaking Matrix. You understand everything that's happening in the boss battle. You understand every attack that's coming. And at that point, it just becomes about allowing your muscles to adapt to what your mind knows, so that you can just perfect your run and be able to just play this against this boss battle, be able to fight against this boss battle perfectly. And that's what happened with Renala. And when I, beat her with bated breath, with that sliver of health left, having to be patient, wait for her attack so I can pair her before I go in for final kill. Oh my God, like the feeling, I hadn't gotten that in a while. And I loved it.
One thing that I'll say with Elden Ring is that whenever I've criticized other games like Lords of the Fallen or Lies of P or Dark Souls 2, a lot of the points of criticism that I have are things like bad animation, bad reads, like bad input reading, or bad hitboxes, for example, right? I don't think that Elden Ring has any of those problems. And I think that every single boss that I've done, when I get hit by something, I like maybe one time, it's like, oh, I shouldn't have got hit by that. But for the most part, every single thing has been perfect. It's not an issue of bad design. It's just an issue of it being extremely punishing and very hard. Even the hippo? I don't really know. I feel like, yeah, the hippo is... what is the attack? Or like, I guess maybe the porcupine slam that he does in the air. I don't know how to dodge that. But I only did it like maybe 3 times. Because I killed the boss really fast. But like the actual boss's animations and his hitbox, I think was totally fine. Like if I fought that hippo out in the open world and I couldn't use torrent, obviously, I think it would have been a great boss. The grab's inconsistent and weird. Oh, you're right. The grab is bad. That's actually not... Yeah, you're right. The grab is bad. Because I remember I did roll out of it and I got hit by it too.
I hated it, don't get me wrong, for a bit, because there came a point where, I was this close, and my mind just goes into panic mode where I'm like, oh my God, I have this much health left, and now I gotta go in for the kill. But then that's when I fuck up the most. And so am
I the only one who doesn't get panic or so when I like even I know sometimes I'm just like, oh fuck, I overplayed myself,
couple times
even
where
I
I'm
know
like,
that for a fact.
I had it. I just had to like do one more strike and she would have been dead, and then she killed me because I panicked.
Yeah.
And so eventually I learned to relax when I have that sliver of health left.
I almost had that
and I
happen
was
to me.
in full control of that final run when I finally did beat her. And it was just the best feeling. And to me, I think that's
most of the time for me, I never really panic on low HP. But that's just me though.
Miyazaki's trying to push the boundaries of, because he knows.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think that's a
I try,
good thing.
I try to keep myself
in
at
my
least a cool
opinion,
head as much as possible, but sometimes I can become a little bit
the
aggressive. to try to
Relnala
finish
whatever
it as
fight,
fast
I
as
think that's
can,
like
so.
the easiest fight that I've done. I don't know why
Adrenaline
so
makes
many
you
people are saying that
makes
she's
you
really
panic
hard.
with choices.
Bro, the grab
well,
is not
maybe because I'm not
inconsistent
from
though.
this world. That's
But
probably
you can
why,
check my
so.
VOD, and there were a couple of times where I rolled
Nothing
out of
much.
it, and then
Same
it
old, same
teleported
old,
my character
Desmond.
inside of his
We're
mouth.
just taking a look at why,
I think it was like the first or
does
second
Elden Ring
attempt that I
deserve,
did.
you
stagger
know,
during
the
phase two and
hate
skipped
or
most
the
of the
mixed
phase.
reviews?
Exactly, right? And so, like, that's why I thought it was easy. So can we try that? I like the fight at all. Unlike the moon explosions, the coolest part of the fight. Yeah, for sure.
Players have gotten
Do you
so
shield?
good
No, if
at
I did,
his games that
if I'd
he
used a
needs to
shield,
push
I
the
don't know if
boundaries
I'd killed.
further
I'd have died
to
once.
give them that
The
feeling
DLC
again.
is fine as
and
it
I
is.
got that feeling again.
I
So
think so
I, for
too.
one,
You know, if I
am all
like if
about
I
it.
eventually get Elden Ring, you know, and the DLC, you know, I'll play it, of course, eventually, whenever that happens, you know.
But I get that maybe not everyone is. But for those players, you know, there are ashes. You got the summons that you can bring into the field, and there are summons. Before every major boss battle, I've seen
the yellow
essentially
thing.
the golden signs on the floor that allows you to summon an NPC character to fight alongside you, and you can also summon an Ash. So that can significantly lower the difficulty if you prefer to just kind of push along and not be, you know...
I thought about making doing a DLC run after I finish the game, and doing a game run, the whole game, where I will not cast a single attack, and I have everybody else do everything for me. Like an actual pacifist run. And I see how fucking far can I get.
Hardcore FromSoft player like me who like will not beat a major boss battle
Is it impossible?
with a summon.
I don't know.
I want to do it by myself and try and find myself, and that's what I ended up doing. And funny enough, I actually beat Renala, the second major boss, first before I beat.
In my opinion, Elden Ring can be
divine
very
dancing
hard
lion
and can be
beast,
very easy depending on your
because
build.
it was just one-shotting me so much. And so I decided to like save that for later, explore, find a bunch of scatter tree fragments, and then beat the second boss first. I went back to the lion, and he was still one-shotting me, so I decided to redo my build. And I decided to put more points into vigor, and decided to equip certain talismans that would reduce the damage of some of his attacks. And once I like puzzle this out, I beat him a lot more easily. And
Yeah, I didn't think the lion was that hard.
The lion?
Like, I had a really hard time doing the second version of the lion, but that's because I was fighting him in a place that wasn't his arena. I think that whenever you're fighting the lion in the arena, I don't really think it's that bad. And I think the reason why a lot of people, like, as soon as you realize the way that some of the mechanics on that fight work, it becomes extremely easy to do. Right? And you can take, actually, that's not true. It's that the lion actually has, out of any of the main bosses, the lion has by far, like probably 2 or 3x the amount of time that he's vulnerable. It's just that the vulnerability phases happen at places that I think that many players don't immediately intuitively understand. Like, for example, like whenever he goes up in the air and he's like in the air and then he dashes down, if you go underneath him in the air, he won't hit you with that. And then you don't have to worry about that or the headbutt, because that's what the one shot was, right? Is that how many of you guys fought the lion, and like the lion, did you fight the second lion? I did. It was a motherfucker. But like, that's because I was fighting him in a weird arena. It was hard to see what was going on. But yeah, the camera's stun-locked. Yeah, the camera is really bad, but the boss isn't. The boss is like fine. I think that one thing that I don't like about combo attacks, and some games and some bosses.
Yeah, so
have
learning the
this,
bosses
and I
and
think
that
that Elden
moves
Ring,
make
like
it
the new
easier. The
DLC
first
has it a
first
little bit,
contradiction from Aspen
is that when one combo hit causes you to get hit by like 3 or 4 other combo hits. I find that to be very frustrating, because it's like, not only am I being punished, but I'm being punished 5 times. Like, the lion comes down and he slams you, and then it's like, okay, you get hit by that, and then he does like the rock thing, and then your character's dead, and it's like, fuck, right? So it's like, at that point, like, why not just kill me on the first attack? It feels awful. So you have no poise? Got it? No, I'm going to ban you for that comment, because that's not the way the game works. So, basically, so the way poise works in the game, this is going to be an education for you. So, you know, don't leave just quite yet. So basically, if you have enough poise, it takes a knockdown and it turns it into a stagger. and if you have enough poise, it takes a stagger and it turns it into just a hit. So basically, if I had not enough poise, it would actually cause me to get knocked down, which would mean that I wouldn't be killed. So it's that middle ground actually that's the problem. So yeah, people just don't understand the game. And I want to say that, like, this is another issue, right? Is that
true? Is that true what he's saying, Dubstep? Learn the combo and avoid it. It's like fighting games. Learn characters to avoid and punish. Is it true what he just said about the poise thing, Dubstep? Or no? Or for people who know about the DLC specifically? Is he correct? Because I don't know, like I said, I don't know too much about Elden Ring, so like I can't throw my own opinion into it, so. Boys don't matter too much. It ain't like Sekiro. Okay.
a lot of the people that are like know-it-alls and like to talk shit about people playing the game, they don't even understand the way the game works.
And I fought him, and if the battle felt a lot easier. So there's also that element of this game being so expansive in its freedom and in how you can build your character, that you can really kind of figure things out as well, and kind of put things into your advantage, or a little more advantageous than the battle would otherwise be.
Yeah.
And so it's just that combination of
my
like,
difficulty for the
you know,
game
giving me that
as
sense of you
playing
gotta
at,
get good,
pose
and you
don't
gotta
matter,
like
poise don't
do
matter.
it over and over again until you start seeing the matrix combined with you got all this free.
I think that's definitely true, and I felt that way fighting that Midra boss. Definitely. I think that the real conversation isn't really about that. It's about whether that process feels good to do.
Take care, Dubstep.
And
Take care.
I would say that with bosses that are like super punishing and hyper aggressive,
if people don't want to learn and adapt, just make a shield build.
Process, especially whenever they have like 6-hit combos.
Freedom to be able to like play around with, to make the battle a little easier, or to be able to tune things how you like, and to
because I've noticed a lot of people use the shield. Uses the shield.
So I don't know. I don't know about you, but I that's the experience I got, and it gave me this great sense of satisfaction of like, I did this, you know, and I figured this out. I got good. I used my knowledge and skills to be able to overcome this seemingly insurmountable wall. And if that's...
I think that's the reason why the games are so popular. He's totally right about this. He's absolutely right. And I think that that's why the games are really fun. And I think that whenever you make a boss that's like extremely, extremely hard, it's harder for you to take advantage of those other tools, or you feel like you have to take advantage of those other tools. So it's kind of like a weird parallel to this is like classic WoW raiding, is that it doesn't really matter like what you bring to a classic WoW raid. You're going to clear the raid anyway because it's very easy. But the harder you make a fight, the more class stacking you have to have, the more, you know, of like uniform gameplay you have to have. You said it's too hard, like WoW? Yeah, I did. And so I think that the issue is that it's meta, right? Yeah, and like the harder the fight is, the more people are going to try to go after a meta. I think that really, and this is like, again, a personal opinion, is that I think that it's dumb the way that weapon upgrades and the respecs work. And I think that psychologically, knowing that you only have a limited amount of respecs causes people to not want to adapt because they're worried of, oh, what if I have to use it later? That's the way that I feel, right? How many of you guys are the kind of people that you collect all of these things to save them for later and then you beat the game? It's very limiting concerning the amount of options. Exactly, right? Like rune arcs, where you can farm more rune arcs, to be fair. So, like, I think that that's also a big issue because, like, what
my friend beat Elden Ring with LOP with just shield build. He just hold on the shield and R1 the boss to death.
He's saying is true,
okay,
and I like the idea of changing your build, trying a new strategy, and using it, and it works. Like, that's clearly what I did yesterday. It worked really fucking well. So I wish they just gave you another option to get more of those items, to just farm them out. I hate changing builds. I would like it a lot more if there was no opportunity cost of it. It's annoying. Yeah. People are so used to the legacy upgrade system at this point. I wouldn't mind them changing it in the next game. Yeah. Like, and I feel that way with new weapons, right? Because I don't want to use a new weapon because then I have to full upgrade that weapon. And I know that there will be an opportunity cost of doing that. But I hated the smithing stones. Yeah, yeah. And again, that's just, I think that again, like it's a psychological thing. So like, there's not really a right and a wrong for this. So like, if people are saying like, oh, I don't feel this way, that's fine. But that's the way that it makes me feel. And it makes me feel like I don't want to take it. I don't want to take a risk and change something because I don't know if it will be worse or not.
What Miyazaki was going for my part, I think he achieved it. I, for one, am really happy with what this DLC has provided because it, for me personally, was exactly what I was looking for. As for what Miyazaki has said about the difficulty, he, in an interview, straight up said that he knows the game is too difficult, but lowering the difficulty, in his opinion, would break the game itself. Speaking to The Guardian, he said if we really wanted the whole world to play the game, we could just crank the difficulty down more and more. But that wasn't the right approach. Had we taken that approach, I don't think the game would have done what it did, because the sense of achievement that players gain from overcoming these hurdles is such a fundamental part of the experience. I agree with this. I used to be very intimidated by FromSoft games before it finally clicked and I got into them.
I think he's right. I mean, again, the only thing I'd want to see is just getting a little bit more wiggle room in fights for like being able to heal. That's the only thing that I genuinely like really annoys me. Everything else is pretty much fine. And a camera, right? But like, that's not really difficulty, right? He didn't, it's not like he programmed the game for the camera to be bad.
And yeah, I just thought, like, why make it this hard? It's difficulty for the sake of difficulty. But once I understood the sense of fulfillment of, like, just trial and error until your brain adapts so well, like the human capability, the brain's capability to adapt to situations is insane. And when you get to that level of almost being just like a freaking pro at each of these boss battles, it is such a good feeling. You feel so godlike, and not many games out there provide that sense. He says turning down the difficulty would strip the game of that joy, which in my eyes would break the game itself.
Interesting.
Again, this is not necessarily for everyone, and that's okay, but it is for me, man.
Yeah.
And I think it is also for a lot of people. I want to be pushed. I want to be challenged now that I'm so deep into these FromSoft games.
It's for those who want it,
you know? One, like, totally get what Miyazaki is going for with this game. But Miyazaki also highlighted that there are ways to make the game easier if that's the approach you want to take. The amount of freedom.
There's so many ways that you can do this. Yeah. Like, that's the thing, is that, like, Elden Ring, even, like, with the DLC, I guarantee you, like, whenever I fought that one boss, what was it? I don't even remember her name. Who cares what her fucking name is? The Scarlet Rot boss. Who gives a fuck? Killed her in the first try was a joke. There will always be a way to kill every boss in these games with absolutely zero skill. You could be fucking blind and do it. You just have to figure out what the right options are.
We've given players helps offset that difficulty curve and makes the game more accessible and engaging. If you want to go for that mage build who can Kamehameha his way through bosses with the combination of the physiques and the talismans that allow you to do a Kamehameha for a while without wasting mana or FP or whatever, like, you can do that. If you want to cheese your way through the game, you can do that. That's within your prerogative, and that's something you figured out, so that's still a victory for you.
Yeah, I think that's the main point, is that personally, this is the way that I feel about summons, is that I don't like the idea of the expectation to use summons, because I feel like using a summon isn't something that I've, like, earned as a player. It's like, I didn't figure this out. It's like just this tool that I can use that makes the fight way easier. It doesn't feel satisfying to use it and to know that you've accomplished something with it, because it feels closer to like a open your menu, turn down the difficulty setting, more than, like, let's say, like, figuring out a new build. Like, the reason why Yang is enjoying this so much, he had so much fun, is because he figured it out, right? Like, it's like he earned the ability to take advantage of this tool, versus, like, with summons and things like that, you didn't really earn this ability. It's just like an option in the game that makes it way easier. So I think that's the big difference between like changing a build versus like using a summon or something like that. At least that's the way that I feel about it. You start the game with summons, do you get in the game? Both.
Because you came up with this idea.
This is just you? Really? Yeah, I don't know. That's the way that I feel. That's the point, though. If the game's too hard, there are options to make it easier. Yeah, I understand that. But, like, in taking advantage of those options, if you feel like you don't have... Like, you didn't earn that option, the accomplishment of beating the boss doesn't feel as good, naturally. Whereas if you feel like you did earn the option, it feels better.
Yeah, and, you know, you executed on it, and you use the game's mechanics to overcome obstacles that the game set before you, seemingly insurmountable obstacles. But then there are those bosses that will just be pains in the freaking asses, and you just have to get good at them, and that's what FromSoft games have been since the beginning. You know, that's what Soulsborne has been.
I think that he's right. The concern that I have is that I'm worried that, and I don't know, like, all the DLC has been harder, but I would say that the measure of difficulty with, like, the Elden Ring base bosses versus the DLC is several orders of magnitude higher than any other From Software DLC at all. Like, I don't...
Is that true? Is that true? What he just said, is that true, Dark? Because, you know, you've played the older Dark Souls games. Is that true? Of what he just said right now? I'd be curious. I'd be curious on your pointers, because I haven't played, like I said, I haven't played any of the older Souls-like games either, so. What did he say again? Here, watch. Pay attention.
For you, seemingly insurmountable obstacles. But then there are those bosses that will just be pains in the freaking asses, and you just have to get good at them, and that's what FromSoft games have been since the beginning. You know, that's what Soulsborne has been.
I think that he's right. The concern that I have is that I'm worried that, and I don't know, like, all the DLC has been harder, but I would say that the measure of difficulty with, like, the Elden Ring base bosses versus the DLC is several orders of magnitude higher than any other From Software DLC at all. Like, I don't think that I've ever seen, like, any difficulty that much, like, anymore. It's, like, way, way, way higher. And so what ends up happening is that I worry that if they keep designing the game... Hard disagree?
So what do you think? What do you think of that, Dark? Do you agree or do you disagree with that? Cause yeah, you know, like I haven't played the game, so I cannot speak on this. So I can only ask those people who are in chat who has played the game, you know, who's played, you know, all the other Souls-like games as well. You know, I'm the one who has not played any of those natures, so. Only you guys can be able to speak about at least the old, you know, the old Souls-likes and the DLCs. If they were, you know, if they were less hard than Elden Ring, you know, because he said like Elden Ring is like, the DLC is like high magnitude. It is true. DLC is always a spike up in terms of difficulty, and it should be that. It is. If the game becomes easy, it's not a Souls-like game. Do you think that the older DLCs were easier compared to the Elden Ring DLC? Is that also a true thing that you can that you agree on, or is one of the, or the DLCs, or at least some of the DLCs from the older games, are a lot more harder technically than Elden Ring? Because you guys said that, like, you know, a lot of the builds, or so at least in Elden Ring, are a lot, you know, you can get a lot of OP stuff off the bat, you know, and then become strong. You can like overpower things pretty easily, so. That's basically is what I'm curious about on that. I haven't played the Elden Ring DLC, but from all the Souls-like DLC, yes, there's a spike in term of difficulty. Okay. Okay, I see.
I'm sorry, but Mesmer is like way fucking harder than anything in the base game. It's not even close. So Millennia's harder? I don't think she is. Personally, I don't think so at all. I think Millennia's harder than Mesmer? I don't think so. Either way, I do think the DLC is way, way harder. And I do worry about, because this is what happened with WoW, is that, and this is one of the things that I've always like praised Elden Ring about, is that Elden Ring was getting released into a community of people that had already played mods and every single one of their games 5 ways through, and they knew everything about the game. But Elden Ring still wasn't a really like particularly super challenging game for those people because it was made for a mainstream audience. And I think that once you start designing a game and making content for the game for like that super hardcore audience, then the audience starts to get smaller because it becomes harder for newer players to get into the game because of how punishing it is and the fact that it's being designed for that larger group of people. It's like Mythic, and this is what happened with like Mythic Raiding and WoW, is that you have like the online community of people that their ego and like sense of self-worth is tied up with how fast they can kill a boss in a video game. And they want to have that be reinforced. They want that to be the focus of the game. They want to see harder bosses, longer bosses, more punishing bosses, like more mythic raids. So like what ends up happening is that as that goes on, the difficulty skill gap between like an average.
But I believe people saying it's harder because people haven't figured out the meta build yet. So they had to beat the game with their raw skills. Okay. Yeah, because like if you have to, well, you have to use your fucking, you know, gotta use your skills at the end of the day, right?
Average player,
You gotta learn.
Like
you gotta learn. It's a new.
player
It's a new
gets larger
experience. It's a new
because
thing.
average players
you know?
are coming into the game and they're basically
They're trying to
skill level
change
that
up.
you
You
would
know,
have
they're
been
trying
whenever
to
you played
change up
Dark
the
Souls 1
difficulty,
for the
trying to
first
bring
time, right?
something new to the
Because
table.
like they're a new
you know,
player,
not
same
just
as you're a
bringing
new
the
player.
same
It's just that
formula every
they're
single
a new
time.
player 10 years later. So, but whenever they're a new player coming into this game that's designed on
Because if you keep bringing the same thing on the same table over and over and over again, right? When it comes to DLC and everything like that, right? You know, you expect to be like, oh, okay, it's the same shit, you know, different game, basically. Yeah, I'll be honest with you. I have no problem with the difficulty. Like for me personally, like for Elden Ring, of course, because I don't have any money for Elden Ring anyway, so I won't be playing it anytime soon because all these other games that are coming out as well, like Black Myth Wukong and you know some other games that I'm pretty interested in too that are coming out later this week. It's kind of like, you know, I'm kind of like, well, you know, eventually, but not anytime soon. But me personally, I don't mind the DLC being hard, you know.
10 years of context
Because you can
and
tackle it in
gameplay,
many different ways, you know.
then think
when
about
it
how
comes to
much harder it
builds.
is for them to overcome that. And that's the problem that I have with like making the game, like making these games like a lot harder, is that I think that the reason why games like Elden Ring and why Dark Souls, why they're such great games, I think that the community is stupid for thinking that they're hard. I do. I think that they're stupid. Because the reason why these games were successful and great was never because they were hard. There are way more games that are way harder than Dark Souls. But it's not about being hard. It's about being fulfilling and rewarding. And I think that should be the focus more than difficulty. I think that difficulty makes things more rewarding, but it's not like if Melania did twice as much damage, she'd be twice as good of a boss. So I think that the problem is like whenever you talk about difficulty in in boss fights and in video games, there's so much of people's ego that gets caught up in the difficulty conversation that you can't accurately have it without having a tremendous amount of dishonesty. Because people are, it's like it turns into an insult, it turns into, you know, oh, you're bad, or oh, this is overpowered, or this is too hard. And nobody actually looks at what the boss does and how it behaves, and whether this behavior is fun to overcome or not. Because I think that a lot of times people that play games, they view
Yeah, the
being
boss in
able
Lies
to
of
beat
P,
the game
the final one, at least.
as basically like a proof that the game is good, or that the game is not bad. But the truth is that people can speedrun any game and beat it pretty much hitless, and it's not a big deal, but that does not make the game good. And so like somebody being able to overcome a design that's like unfun doesn't make the design good. It just means that you can beat it. Like I beat Dark Souls 2. I don't think it's a very well designed game. I beat a lot of mythic raids in WoW. I don't think they're very fun. So it's like the difference between like playing something and feeling fulfilled for it versus playing something and you know, just being able to beat it. I think that people look at beating it as like an accomplishment, but, and this is, again, I think this is like a certain degree of like gamer delusion, where it's like the boss is programmed to lose, right? It's like it's programmed for you to beat it.
Yeah.
You know, it's just, you know, you input the codes, you do these attacks, you do this thing, and the boss dies, right? And I think that people take that too seriously, and they treat it like it's like they actually accomplished something. Where it's like, I think that getting an ego from video game accomplishments is kind of a dangerous thing. Because whenever you're getting an ego from a video game accomplishment, it's like you're basically priding yourself on being able to do something that was programmed for you to be able to do it. I find it to be a bad thing. So that's the way that I feel about with some of the boss fights. And
it's not bad having a little bit of ego, to be honest. It's actually not too bad to have a little bit of ego, you know. Not a whole lot, but a little bit though.
I don't think that, like, again, I think that the DLC is great. I think it's great DLC. But I think that the way that some of the boss fights are designed, it doesn't feel fun to progress on them. It doesn't mean I can't beat them. But for me, it doesn't feel good to progress. That's the way that I feel. That's only you? Well, it's clearly not, though, right? Because that's why it has mixed reviews. Because if it was only me, then it wouldn't have that. A lot of people are saying this.
Demon
Wait,
Souls.
wait.
It's
Didn't
like,
you
of
just
course-
say, wait. Didn't you just say that the reviews was mostly for optimization and whatever the other one that he said at the beginning of the video? Didn't he just said that at the beginning of the video that it was supposed to be like, you know, the mixed reviews are from optimization issues and all that other stuff? I remember him saying it at the beginning of this video. Wait, hold on, let me go back a little bit.
Progress. That's the way that I feel.
Go back a little bit.
To be able to do it. I find it to be a bad thing. So that's the way that I feel about with some of the boss fights. And I don't think that, like, again, I think that the DLC is great. I think it's great DLC. But I think that the way that some of the boss fights are designed, it doesn't feel fun to progress on them. It doesn't mean I can't beat them. But for me, it doesn't feel good to progress. That's the way that I feel. That's only you? Well, it's clearly not, though, right? Because that's why it has mixed reviews. Because if it was only me, then it wouldn't have that.
Yeah, but you said like the mixed reviews were optimization issues and like one other thing. I don't remember what the other thing he said because it's at the beginning of the video, right? But I remember he saying something else. Hold up a second. Yeah, it's like low FPS. I don't know. I remember him saying something else specifically for it. That's why.
A lot of people are saying this.
It's Demon Souls, you know, and it's like, of course, they have to just up the ante with every new entry because, you know, players are just getting better and better and better. But
yeah, I really hope they don't do that, by the way. They should never do that. Because players are getting better, but those players will always find ways to add difficulty into the game by doing challenge runs, whereas the average player, it just becomes more and more inaccessible. I worry about that with a lot of games, where once games build a big fan base, then the fan base wants the game to continue growing with the fan base in terms of...
But I believe people saying it harder because people haven't figured out
skill level, and then eventually
I'm wondering.
okay,
hold on. I know
repeated
repeated saying that. But I'm wondering if maybe once
player
maybe
is, like,
once
so
the
big.
once the meta, right? Once the meta build, right? I want to talk about that again. I bet you once they find out what the meta is, right, for the game, it's just gonna be easy, right? I assume that's how every Souls game is, right? When they find the meta, right? You sure we know it wasn't just Asmon had issues? It's him and the 70% of player base yet to beat the game. Could be. I bet you once because I was rereading that, right? Because I was rereading that specifically because I made a mistake or so because I forgot I read it. But I was also thinking about it too specifically. It was just maybe once they find the meta build, it's probably DLC is probably gonna be a cakewalk or so. Because we just saw a video, right? Of this one dude killing the golden hippo boss in 1 minute. You know, he defeated it in 1 minute. So it's just okay, so there's probably already some people there already experimenting with builds already, and they're already it's just a lot of thinking I don't know. Okay, I don't know. That's just me just from looking at it from that one piece of footage at least, you know. I may not have played the DLC, right? I have no experience whatsoever with Elden Ring, right? I have zero experience, but at least from what I'm looking at it anyways, because I've seen Elden Ring videos, right? I assume once those come out, you know, knowing FromSoft's history, they will buff some weapons to make the game easier. Is that a a occurring thing or so? I think that's what they did too with Armored Core as well. So if I remember correctly, they buffed certain weapons or so and nerfed certain weapons or so for it to make it easier.
It's insurmountable.
I haven't gone back to play it, so but.
Are you the average player? No, I'm not. I played all the games. No, absolutely not. I'm talking about for average. I think WoW is probably the best example. Elden Ring is not the same as a WoW experience. In Elden Ring, you could literally set the bar for difficulty, either going to Moon route or going to Summoning route. Yeah, that's true, but understanding what that bar is easier to intuit in Dark Souls 1 than it is in the the Elden Ring DLC. And the difference between those...
Yep, they nerfed the broke stuff and then buff the normal weapons to normal players able to progress. Yeah.
Two things is a lot more substantial. That's the point.
Elden Ring, more than any other FromSoft game, lets you kind of go crazy and experiment and do things that, you know, might break the game and might allow you to just breeze through it. But hey, if you figured it out, then that's your victory. So yeah, look, Miyazaki, he's a sadistic son of a gun, but he is creating a very specific type of experience, and I can respect that personally, and he's exactly a...
Yeah, and it's not for everybody at the end of the day, you know, when it comes to the game itself, you know.
Appealing to what
it's not for everyone.
From new entries and new additions to the FromSoft array of games and DLCs. This is the guy who, when it comes to freaking poison swamps areas in Elden Ring, he said, I might have gone a little too far with the base game. So instead, for Shadow of the Erdtree, he imagined different ways I want to die, and in turn for the players to die. This is who we're talking about. It's what else are you expecting from a DLC for Elden Ring? Of course, he was gonna push the ante. I'm not surprised that the game is this hard personally.
Yeah.
But for some, they're like, he's crossed the line too much, and I don't want any part of this. And if that's you, look, that's okay.
Even in the Kingdom Hearts, the Kingdom Hearts DLC, right, when it came out or so for the data battles and stuff like that, it's fucking hard. You know, I haven't done it yet, right? I want to do it. I want to go back to, you know, Kingdom Hearts 3 and do the DLC. Because I heard it's pretty difficult and I like it personally. So keeps you on your toes. So I want to, you know, but it's just like I expect it to be hard.
I think
you
people
know?
have to decide like what they want to do with the game, and it's like obviously that depends. I just hope that I wish that the From Software, like the Soulsborne community, could have a more honest conversation about what they like and don't like about boss fights without it turning into an ego competition. Because I feel like you can't ever have a conversation that's honest about difficulty in the game without people resorting to insults. And I think it's a problem because, like, obviously you see a lot of new games come out that are like trying to emulate Dark Souls, whether it's Enotria, Lies of P, Lords of the Fallen.
I also don't agree with Asmon's take that the newer games shouldn't increase the difficulty. If the difficulty level is the same across all the games, then what the point is the same and boring, just like FIFA and COD.
Mortal Shell, Another Crab's Treasure.
Yeah.
All of these games are basically like Dark Souls, right? They pretty much are. They function the same way. And I love these games. They're my favorite kind of games. They absolutely are. So, you know, I'm obviously advocating. I wish that people could talk about them and have conversations about them without letting their ego get involved.
I'm down with this, man. I'm fine with being stuck on a boss until I just figure it out, or just being able to take a break from that boss and go out and explore, because the open world itself has so much freaking content and density and substance that you can take a break from those very difficult boss battles and just kind of do what's out there and find some of those mini bosses that are easier to fight. So apparently the Black Jail Knight is a boss that's giving a lot of people a lot of trouble. I don't know. That's not been my experience. I killed him, I think, in like the first.
The Black Jail Knight? Who's that? That was a boss? Okay. Yeah, no, I know.
Wait, the Black Gale Knight? Hold on, let's see. Can we see real quick? Let's take a look. Cause like I said, I don't know anything about the Elden Ring stuff. Let's take a look, shall we? Oh, there's already someone who killed it in like 2 minutes. Right, I want to absorb as much information about this, right, as much as possible, you know.
Delivering Guru here, and today what I will in fact do is cheese the Black Jail Knight and take his armor and weapon as our reward. All you need for this to work is any weapon, spell, or ash of war that knocks him on his arse. As when you've knocked him down once, the fight is as good as over, as you can continue to stun lock him by knocking him down over and over as he tries to get back up. I've chosen the
look at
giant
that.
Hunt Ash of War to cheese him. You can acquire it by killing the Knight's cavalry boss that's found between Bellum Church and East Rea Lucaria Gate Sites of Grace.
This guy's already cheesing it. Look at that. Look at this.
Then check the description and it will be there. Believe it or not, this coward can still damage you even when he's stun locked. Because if he falls on your melon head, you will take a small amount of damage. You can perform a back step as he's landing to avoid this. If your weapon and stats are high enough, you should be damaging him enough with each hit.
Look at that.
To worry about it. If he'll be dead before you.
People had difficulties with this guy?
An easy cheese that anyone can follow. I'll be making guides for all the bosses in the DLC, among other tips and guide videos. So make sure to subscribe and click the notification bell to never miss a video. You'll love it.
Yeah, there it is. There it is. There it is. 15 hours ago. That's it. People had difficulties with that? Man, I wouldn't have a difficulty with that, to be honest.
I know what you're talking about. Yeah, he's the guy that drops you the silent armor and the sword. And he has the great sword, and he does the jump attack, and then the side swipe. Yeah.
Do
The
tries.
Berserker, yeah.
I'm using the backhand blades. I don't know if that weapon's just really good against the Black Jail Knight, but I killed him very quickly. So
Yeah.
a lot of people are having trouble with this one and putting all kinds of memes up on the internet about him. I had literally no trouble with him, but everyone's experience is going to be different based on what their builds are, what their weapons of choice are. just what their play style is and how they go about it. You know, and that's the beautiful thing about Elden Ring is just how open and flexible it is, and its difficulty and challenge is what makes it quintessential.
I don't think there was anything wrong with that boss, to be honest with you. The only criticism I have for the boss is really, it's not, I just think that they should give you a little bit more time to heal, because it's harder to learn to fight whenever you just get killed and you can't actually heal. That's the only real thing that I don't like. Other than that, like, the damage, I think is like, yeah, it's super fucking high. It's insanely fucking high. But if you could step back and heal, you could learn it more easily. That's it. Everything else I'm fine with.
Yeah, but you can just learn it in the first couple of tries, you know?
Essential from Soft, it's what's gonna
Like, that's the whole
put you
point,
in that
right?
almost like abusive relationship
It's not like I'm gonna go into a boss fight and I'm gonna immediately know what the fuck it's gonna do, you know?
of hating this freaking game until you love it so freaking much, and that overcomes the hate, because that sense of satisfaction is everything. That's my take on this at the very least. Let me know what you think. If you played Shadow of the Erdtree, are you finding the difficulty of Shadow of the Erdtree to be too much, or is
This makes me want to buy Elden Ring, play Elden Ring, and then do the DLC at this point. If people are like complaining that it's really fucking hard or something like that.
this precisely
But I don't have any money though, unfortunately.
what the doctor ordered for you, like it was for me? And what's your general experience of this DLC? Like, are you enjoying it in general? Do you think that this is a well-crafted DLC? I think this DLC is freaking awesome, but that's just me. Share your thoughts in the comments below, and to be further updated on all things gaming news, reviews, and discussions, stay tuned right here on Young Yeah. I'll see you guys next time. Young out.
I think that it's almost undeniable that the DLC is at least a 9 out of 10, and if not a 10 out of 10. It absolutely is. It's basically like Elden Ring 2. Like, the DLC is larger than Dark Souls 1, and it's probably also even larger than Dark Souls 2.
If you feel no time to heal, then learn the openings windows or use regen buffs or something. Yeah, it's just like there has to be a window in between in order for you to heal. It's not like it's programmed, right, for you not to fucking heal, right? Like, it's programmed, like he says, right? It's programmed for the boss to be defeated, right? So then it's programmed for you to have an opening for you to heal. Then it's not like it's gonna be relentlessly always continuously attacking you. Like, there's no way. Like, it's literally impossible, because then that would just make the fight unenjoyable overall. You know, there has to be an opening, but you're just being such a knucklehead and not learning it, because that's how Asmon is, right? That's how Asmongold is as a player. Like, overall, he just likes beating his fucking head over a fucking wall consistently until he manages to fucking beat it, right? Because because that's what he says multiple times. He says it himself. Like, he just goes straight through it, and he doesn't care how long it'll take him. He's gonna fucking like push through it, you know? It's just that's just the problem. The problem is he gets angry like really, really, really fast. So then he just starts getting he just starts getting clouded by his emotions for it, and he can't look at it, he can't learn, and all this other stuff, and it takes him way too long for certain things, you know. So
Dark Souls 3.
I don't know.
It's massive.
That's
right?
just me though.
Not a 10. I do think they overshot the difficulty though. And I know that some people might be unhappy about that, but I do genuinely think they overshot the difficulty of the game. And I think that they made a mistake.
I'll be interested when you play the DLC Dark and then you beat it or so. I'll be interested to see what your opinion or so is on the DLC.
By designing it to counter people over leveling. I don't think that was necessary. I feel like it probably would have been better without the tree upgrades. It's my opinion. Thanks to you, they'll nerf it. Great. What do you mean thanks to me? Thanks to me? What do you mean? You always make it tedious. Yeah, this is my opinion. Yeah, then there's literally no progression. Well, you could get better weapons. You could get new weapons. I feel like the kind of people... Like, here's the thing. If you say there's no progression, and the idea of 8 new weapon classes isn't progression for you... Come on! What do you mean? Wasn't a problem for any other Souls game. Yeah, exactly. Like, this has been the case. Yeah, every other one's been like that. Thanks for ruining the game. They probably assumed that since it's been out for so long, everybody will be level 800 by now. No, yeah, I didn't over-level at all. I wish that I over-leveled. I do. I completely wish that I over-leveled. And the reason why is actually because it has nothing to do... I started at 165, yeah. It has nothing to do with anything else other than the fact that I want to use Mesmer's Spear, and I wish that I had gotten more levels in the DLC earlier, so I could use more weapons without having to level up my stats for them. Like, I wish I got to like level 400 or 500 or something like that. That's the only thing. Other games didn't have Moog Palace.
Interesting. In my opinion, don't think it overshot it. It's the base game is undershotted. That's why it gives a delusional to players that, oh, how hard the DLC will be. I see. Yeah, I don't mind. Like, I honestly don't mind the DLC being hard in my personal opinion, because I feel like that's fine for an Elden Ring. Like, the base game should be like, you know, the difficulty it should be, right? And then the DLC should be like a notch or 2 notches higher at least, and changing some certain things, right? To basically like kind of like counterbalance and keep those people who are like super experts, right? To keep them on their toes, you know. But it still provide a wide variety of tools and arsenals for people to use. Now, if you guys if the players don't use like the wide variety of like the tools and arsenal that's on the table, right? It's like, oh, you can use this, right, to make it easier, or if you want to stick to your same build, it'll just be fucking difficult, you know? It's like, you know, what do you want to choose? You know, it just depends. You know, but if you're being so stubborn and you're staying where you want to stay or so, that's your fault at the end of the day, you know? If you're only sticking to your one build and you don't want to change and you don't want to adapt during the boss fight or anything like that, you know, and you're having a frustrating time, you know, that's your problem, or so, at least for the Elden Ring DLC is what I'm talking about, for the Elden Ring DLC. So it's like, you know, because because Elden Ring just has like a big old variety of like, you know, of fucking arsenals for you to use. You know, they give you the arsenal. You just gotta go look for them, you know. Go look for them, go get them, you know. I assume there's some places that you can get probably like pretty strong weapons early in the game, or a spell or something, you know. I don't fucking know. Like I said in the deal, like I said, I don't know how is the DLC. Like I don't know. I'm just giving an example from what I've been hearing, at least from the base game, that you can get like early spells that are pretty strong, or weapons and stuff like that. So yeah, I don't know. I don't know. I think me personally, I'm okay with it. I'm fine with it. You know, if I eventually play it, I'll play it eventually. You know, whenever that is, of course. You know, whenever I have money, because games are expensive at the end of the day. So I can't really shell out like $60-$70 every single time. You know, it's expensive now these days. You know, if I want to get the DLC on top of that too, it'd probably be like, I don't know, like 100. How much is for the base game? Let me see. Hold on. How much is for the DLC? Let me see. It's like $40, right? It's like $40, and then the base game is $60, right? That's like $100 right there. That's kind of that's a lot of fucking money for me personally. Dropping $100 immediately, yeah, that's a lot of money for me. So that's the only reason why I haven't really played it, because, you know, that's the only reason why. So it's just like other games come out in the way, you know, while, you know, it has to be like a dry season in order for me to play some other games that, like, you know, that I want to try out, but then, you know, can't try out because of money wise. Budget is just the main key, you know. Like I said, I don't make that much money, you know. I have the budget, my shit, you know, with other shit, and, you know, if I can only afford one game a month, then that's all I can afford, you know. That's it, you know. I just have to choose wisely what I want to play. So that's why when it came to Armor Core, and there was another game that was coming out that month, I chose Armor Core because, you know, I played Armor Core in the past, and I wanted to play the new Armor Core, and I enjoyed it. So, you know, as much as like I raged on it, right, here and there, right, you know, I still enjoyed it. You know, I like it personally. So just wait for a sale, usually after a year. there would be a sale. Yeah, it just depends if as long as there's no other game that comes out. That's the only reason why. Or like if there's another sale that kind of like, you know, another game that interests me on that sale. That's the only reason, you know. Like why do you think it took me like, I don't know, forever to pick up the DMC Devil May Cry 5 game with the DLC. So that's the only reason why. You know, it took me this long. I haven't played it yet, but you know, like I said, you know, after that, but one day we'll play it. We'll get the chance to play it on day. So that's the only thing. It's just like I have to. Hopefully, it comes at a time where, you know, there isn't any other games that like interest me on the sale. That's it. You know, because like, you know, there's other games that do interest me at the end of the day that I do want to try out, at least for like a little bit. You know. Yeah, but I want to move on to Stridnova because I am in the Stridnova channel or so, and I don't want to get issues with the Stridnova stuff. But anyways, yeah, that was pretty interesting. I did wanted to know what Asmongold's take on it. Like, I know it's a reaction on top of a reaction and stuff like that, right? But like, I just wanted to know what his opinion on it because he has played. I think he's already beaten the game and the DLC itself. And you know, as someone who has not played Elden Ring or has even played the DLC, I wanted to know what's been happening or so, why it's been getting like mixed receptions, or because I saw on Steam that like the DLC was getting mixed reviews or so, and all this other stuff. So yeah, like I don't know, I'm okay with it personally. Like I said, you know, I just wanted to know. That's about it. I don't really usually do the reactions on top of reaction stuff, but I like to learn from his opinion, at least for the Elden Ring DLC anyways. I don't know, so I don't know. Everyone in chat here thinks the DLC is okay. You know, Dubstep is the one that's been playing the DLC, and he's been enjoying it. So like I said, you know, that's pretty much it. So but anyways, you guys can comment, like, subscribe, you know, do all that fancy jazzy stuff, and let me know if I have any, you know, any fans or so that are playing the Elden Ring DLC or has played the Elden Ring in general. Do you guys think the DLC is hard? I personally don't see it that way. Granted, I haven't played it, so, but like at least from like what I've been seeing, at least from videos, there's already ways to beating these bosses like super easily. There's already the cheese already. Like you just gotta wait for like the cheese to come out, you know, or like the builds, the metas and stuff like that, you know. And like the game is like super new, you know, like even an average player like me, right, can probably use these techniques to beat the bosses. If I'm getting frustrated or so, I can just use them. I can just use these techniques to use to beat the bosses, and then move on. That's it, you know. Like I'll try beating the boss like the way how I'll try it first off, and then if I'm not getting any progress or so, I'll just look at a video or something like that, and then we'll try it out, and then I just beat it, and that's it. So that's it, you know. I don't know. I don't know. I don't know. I just don't see the big hubbub about people complaining about the bosses themselves being difficult in the DLC. So, but anyways, you guys can let me know down in the comment section. You know, I always read down in the comment section, so you guys can let me know specifically if you guys think the DLC is hard. So, there's some ways to beef your damage reduction pretty well. Yeah. But anyways, I'll catch you guys on the next video. Peace.